Okay, this is Tzurba Mirabana. We're going to have a Chazara shiur on volume 16, which had 8 shiurim. We'll start to see if we could do the first 4. We'll see how far we get. And again, the Chazara shiur will not be going through every detail that was discussed in the first shiurim, but it'll just go through, review some of the highlights. The Gemara says in Sanhedrin Daf Tzadi, if somebody learns without reviewing, so then it is like putting a seed in the ground and not harvesting and not continuing the process. So, and how do you remember where that is? Sanhedrin Daf Tzadi 99. You couldn't do it one more time, the 100th time. But, Chazara is crucial in order for it to become part of our essence, and obviously to remember, and therefore we're going to review. We're not going to do, as I said, a comprehensive review. A real review would be go through the sources again. Rabbi Yashiv once said that reviewing really should be relearning. But again, this is not the purpose of this year, but we'll just try to highlight, at least to remember some of the issues and remember some of the shitos that we discussed. So the first year was about pre-Shabbos. We spoke about things, activities that are limited for a couple of days before Shabbos, hachana for Shabbos, eating a meal on Friday, traveling on Fridays. Let's review some of the topics that we discussed. We saw the Gemara in Shabbos Daf Yutes, which discussed mafligin b'sfina. One is not allowed to go on a boat if it's not l'tzorach mitzvah. One's not allowed to go on a boat Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 days before Shabbos. And it was very unclear in the Gemara, Shabbos Yutes, what exactly is the issue in the Gemara? Why is it usher? Why would it be usher to go on a boat Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday? So the Rishonim discussed. Tosfos says maybe it's included in the Gzeira of Shut, of building a raft. Others say that maybe the Rif says it'll be a problem of Onik Shabbos. You'll still be seasick because if you're only there for a couple of days, if you're there for earlier in the week, so then it would be you'll be used to it already. But the Balamar and other Rishonim, the Mishnah Berurah quoted all of these in his Hakdama to Seven Reish Bem Ches. Balamar says because you're nervous that you're going to have to be Mechal Shabbos. And putting yourself into a situation that you're going to have to be Mechal Shabbos in order to, save yourself because it's a sakana, so that shouldn't be done. That shouldn't be done right before Shabbos. Again, a large issue of putting yourself into a situation that later on you'll have the heter of the Chiyas Yisurin, but that's the issue that was discussed. And the question is, how that relates to activities done at the end of the week. We spoke about, does that affect modern day applications? We saw Rabbi Tzvi Goldberg, again, page 26, just remember, mention some of the sources. They said, nowadays, maybe even if the reason might not apply, but maybe we should keep this halacha. But the Vilna Gaon said, maybe it's only Thursday, Friday, maybe today there's not going to be Chol Shabbos if there are all non-Jewish workers on a boat. The poskim said if there are Jewish workers on a boat, that's very difficult. Jewish workers on a boat that are going to be Mechal Shabbos for you, so then to do that actively, Rav Avadia said in Yechavadas, that is a problem, and then Minchas Yitzchak said that is a problem. So one should be careful of that. If there's a cruise that it docks before Shabbos, then it stays in port the entire time, or it's mostly a non-Jewish crew, and there's a many non-Jewish people on the boat. It's just a kosher program that also could have a tzad lahakel, but that's in terms of boat. We spoke about other modern forms of transportation. The Piskei Teshuvos quotes the Chazam Sofer and others that discuss being on a train. So whether if you're on the train beforehand, is it affected more by my weight? These are serious issues, but the larger issue in all of these situations, we said, is the Ramban. The Ramban, even if I could come up with a case of, he's not doing malacha for me, and I'm not affecting it, is this how we're supposed to be spending Shabbos? Remember the Ramban in Parshas Emor, and the Ramban elsewhere discusses that there's an asay of Shabboson. There's an asay of creating a special day of Shabbos, and even where one's not violating a malacha, one has to make sure that the day is what we call Shabbos dik. Shabbos dik is not an extra legal, not included in the halacha. That is the halacha, the Ramban says. And therefore, this is definitely an example of a violation of it. If somebody's in the middle of traveling on Shabbos, we should try not to be in that type of situation, even if nitty-gritty we could get out of the details of the halacha. So that's in terms of before Shabbos. Preparing for Shabbos, we mentioned that there's a mitzvah of kavod Shabbos. Preparing for Shabbos, the Gemara Maseches Beitza that discuss Shammai and Hillel, beginning of the second parak, that they each used to prepare in their own way. Shammai used to find a nice piece of meat for Shabbos. He used to take it, and then he found a nicer one. So then he ate the first one, and he kept the second one. And Shammai did that, and Hillel said, I'm going to find that he didn't focus. He didn't take a piece of meat on Tuesday or Wednesday. Hashem's going to help me. Hashem's going to help me. But we mentioned that the halacha is like Shammai, and therefore we should always be preparing for Shabbos already from the beginning of the week, right? We say Hayom Yom Rishon b'Shabbos. We're already preparing for Shabbos at the beginning of the week because that's what we look forward to. That's what we look forward to, and one should prepare for Shabbos even, especially on Erev Shabbos. What about doing laundry on Erev Shabbos? So we spoke about the Gemara in Baba Kama that maybe that should be done earlier. Maybe today, nowadays, with our washing machines, is not the same as in the days of old, where you had to take it down to the river. Lamaisa, whatever preparations could be done on Friday without a problem, and it's usually done on Friday, that's fine. But anything that could be done beforehand, so then one should do it beforehand and not create more pressure on Erev Shabbos. The Gemara says in Shabbos Kuf Yud Zayin, I'm on page 39, those of you who are like skimming the Sefer with us also, Rav Chisda says you should get up early on Erev Shabbos. Yashkim Adam Lo Tzah Shabbos. You should get up early. And the poskim even say that we saw that even if, let's say, the only time that the rolls, the challahs that you like are going to be available is before davening, you could go. Because it's L'Shem Hashem. It's not my own personal, even though I'm not supposed to do personal activities for before davening, but if it's for Shabbos, I'm allowed to do it. We should do it. Shopping for Shabbos. The poskim say, the Mishnah Berurah says again, if you could do it after davening, wonderful, but you should do it yourself, right? And every time you pick something up, the Mishnah Berurah quotes to say Zelo Kavod Shabbos. That adds a certain kedusha to the purchase. Vayomer b'shas hakaniyah she'osa kein lo Kavod Shabbos. The Shmir Shabbos quotes from the Mishnah Berurah. The poskim also quote the idea of tasting the food. Mishnah Berurah quotes mitzvah lit o mikol tavshil tila sakran yafek kahogan. Right, if you could taste the food, so whatever you could do to prepare for Shabbos. If you have a special guest coming, you're going to taste the food. You're going to make sure it's taste perfectly. So one should do that, and one should do it personally. One should be involved personally in the preparations of Shabbos. Remember, this is only one of the only two examples where the Gemara says mitzvah bo yosmei b'shlucho. The Gemara in Kedushin Mem Aleph, the beginning of the second parach, only quotes two mitzvahs. That mitzvah bo yosmei b'shlucho. Maybe it applies to other mitzvahs, but the two in Shas are getting married and getting ready for Shabbos. Kavod Shabbos. The great Amoraim themselves were involved in these preparations. The language of the Shulchan Aruch is yishtadel lahachin atzmo. He should do it. There is an Aruch HaShulchan, an unusual Aruch HaShulchan, where the Aruch HaShulchan is defending how is it that many wives do it for their husbands. The husbands are not involved. So ishto kugufo. Ishta kugufo, she's preparing. That should not be generally relied upon. That's the other poskim don't quote. Ishta kugufo is usually a legal term in terms of edus and the like. But in this context, the Amoram also had wives, and they did it. So one should be directly involved in the candles and the table and the shopping, whatever needs to be done, in the kitchen, washing dishes on Erev Shabbos, whatever needs to be done. What about having a meal on Friday? So the Gemara talks about, the Mishnah, beginning of Ari Pesachim, says we should go into Pesach b'taiva. We should go into Pesach with an appetite. That is kavod. And the Gemara in Gittin Daf Lamed Ches says there was a family that had suffered terrible tragedies. Why? Because they were kovei Suda on Friday afternoon. So Rashi has different days there. Is that because, during the Rabbi shiur, or is it no? Because you can't be kovei Suda on Erev Shabbos because it's a lack of Kavod Shabbos. We mentioned from the Vilna Gaon, the Gra said that, what's the difference between Kavod Shabbos and Oneg Shabbos? If you look at the Rambam, in Hilchot Shabbos, the end, remember we said the first 28 prakim are about mostly los aseis, and the last two prakim are about the aseis. So if you look all the way at the end, where the Rambam talks about Kavod and Oneg, Kavod is setting the table and buying nice food and taking a shower. That's all Kavod Shabbos. The Gra says Kavod is everything that's done before Shabbos. Oneg Shabbos is everything that's done on Shabbos for the enjoyment of Shabbos. That's the Vilna Gaon's chiluk. But one of the halachas of Kavod Shabbos is not eating a big meal. Because if I don't eat a big meal, that gives me more of an appetite. If I know I'm going to a fancy restaurant tonight and I'm going to eat a lot, I skip lunch. Why? Because you want to be able to have the appetite and get the most out of the experience. So, and that's what the poskim say. There are differences in halacha. There are really three different levels of types of meals that the poskim discuss. One shouldn't have a very unusual meal, huge meal, all day. all day one should not have that. What about in a kovea suda? One shouldn't be kovea suda with washing later in the day, but snacking all day one is okay. Again, if one has a bris that works out on Friday, if one makes a wedding on Friday, so then there is a possibility of you have to have the suda. But again, generally the point is one should have an appetite going into Shabbos. Also, late in Shabbos, one shouldn't be involved in other work. One should try to do what they can beforehand. What about traveling on Fridays? Traveling on Fridays, so the poskim discuss this, that I have to make sure that I am where I am. Again, I'm not chazering every halacha, but I should try to make sure that I get to where I am at a normal time. The Gemara says in Sukkah, on Daf Mem Daled, a person shouldn't travel on Erev Shabbos more than 3 parsos. Right, the Shulchan Aruch quotes this. In Hochim Erev Shabbos Yosem Gimel Parsos. Kadeshi Yagiu LeBeiso Ba'oda Yom Gadol. V'Yuchal Lahakin Sarchi Sud. Make sure so you get there with enough time to prepare the food. What if you know people are preparing the food for you, so you're not going to have to? So the Mishnah Shabbos says, in our day and age, we travel more than 3 parsos. And they have plenty of food for you there. So it is okay to travel. But again, people should not do it so late, right? It causes issues that come up, emergencies. So then Aruch HaShulchan quotes, if you remember, on page 55, Hasatan mekatreg be'erev Shabbos. Friday afternoon, there's always craziness going on. The Satan is mekatreg. I think we mentioned that's exactly when Adam and Chava got thrown out of Gan Eden. That's when the whole chait of the Eitz Hadas happened. So, Shalom Bayis is challenged at that time of the week. It's in the days, and therefore we should do what we can to get there early and be benachat. And Rabbi David Heber, we mentioned, quoted at the end, said, whatever time it takes to get to your destination, you have to leave double the time, at least. I leave double the time, set aside double the amount of time it normally takes for Friday travel, and take into account a possible bus or rail mechanical delay, highway traffic jam, v'chulu. Do what you can. Okay, this was shiur number 1. Again, restrictions before Shabbos, transportation, preparing for Shabbos, meals on Friday, and the like. Now let's get into shiur number 2, which we spoke about, Halakas Neiros. We had 2 shiurim about Halakas Neiros Shabbos on Erev Shabbos. Why do we light candles? And this is a mitzvah that we mentioned. One has to sell even the shirt off your back for selling the candles because it's a result-oriented mitzvah. Like the Avnei Nezer says, that mitzvos of Pirsume Nisa, one has to sell the shirt off their back for, right? The Chanukah and Megillah and Dalet Kosos. So too, this is a mitzvah that one even has to collect tzedakah from to fulfill the mitzvah, as the Shulchan Aruch says, and therefore one has to take it very seriously. So the language of the Gemara in Shabbos Chafei is that Halakas Neiros is a chova, and Rashi says, Kavod Shabbosu she'ein suda chashuva el b'makom or ke'ein yamama. Yeah, chashuv meal is light. It's chova, and therefore you have to make sure that it is performed. The Tosfos there in Shabbos Chafei discusses that it's a mitzvah. Yesh rotzim lomar de'en levarach al halakas ner mitkari lechova. Maybe chova is not mitzvah. Maybe you shouldn't make a bracha. Or Rabbeinu Tam Tashivish, it's a mistake. This isn't like my machronim that it's just preventative the dark. No, it's a chova shel mitzvah oneg Shabbos. It's the mitzvah of oneg Shabbos to be able to have candles. So is that oneg? Should we be medayik in that? If you look in the Rambam mentions halakas neiros both by kavod and by oneg. I think we mentioned then from Reb Chaim, because as we mentioned, according to the Vilna Gaon's distinction, kavod is before Shabbos, oneg is on Shabbos, and halakas neiros fulfills both. It's lighting the candles before Shabbos, that's the mitzvah of Kavod Shabbos, and on Shabbos, it's enjoying them. It's enjoying the candles, and therefore it is a kiyum of both. Rav Soloveitchik noted that in terms of hachanas for Shabbos, this wasn't in the packet, but we mentioned this, the same way that the Rambam discusses getting ready for Shabbos is the way that the Rambam discusses getting ready for tefillah. Right, washing. Rambam says washing hands before davening, sitting with bated anticipation, nice, different type of clothes, gathering in groups. What does that all mean? Because the Rav Soloveitchik explained, tefillah is an experience of an intense relationship, yichidus with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's what Shabbos is. 25 hours a week. We have special yichidus, special private time with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we have to make sure that we take advantage of it. We mentioned the Shemi Shmuel, who says, we say to the Malachim, Shalom Aleichem, Boachem L'Shalom, Tzeischem L'Shalom, and many wonder, what are we asking the Malachim to leave for? Tzeischem L'Shalom. So some say it means whenever they leave. We don't know when they're going to leave, so we say, whenever you leave, have it Tzeischem L'Shalom. But the Shemi Shmuel says, no. He says, when we come to the Shabbos table, it's just us and Hashem. Even the Malachim can't stay there. And therefore, we say Tzeischem L'Shalom. But that's what Shabbos is, and that's what we light candles for Kavod Shabbos and for Oneg Shabbos. But there is a third aspect of Halakas Neiros, and that, of course, is Shalom Bayis. The Gemara in Shabbos Chav Gimel, on page number 76, Ner Beso and Ner Chanukah, if you have a choice, you only have enough money for one. A Shabbos candle or a Chanukah candle. A Shabbos candle, you have an obligation to get Hanah from. Chanukah candle, you're not allowed to get Hanah from. What wins? What wins? Ner Shabbos wins because of Shalom Bayis. Shalom Bayis, Rashi quotes, when it's dark, people get angry at each other. Maybe we'll bang our foot, Rashi says in Shabbos Chaf Hey. So therefore, one has to make sure that we are very makpid about lighting candles. Where is the key, the most important place to light? In the place where we eat. Right, the Aruch HaShulchan says, "The makam she'ochlin hu mikavet Shabbos v'sharei chadarim." Okay, that's also, but that's not the same level of obligation. Again, it should be light in all places, and one could have in mind when you put on a light in the hallway, even in the bathroom, one could have in mind before Shabbos that this is part of the mitzvah. But obviously, where you eat is the most important part. How many candles does one light? So, based on the bracha, lahadlik ner shel Shabbos. One candle is me'ikar adin. That's all one has to light. The nusach doesn't change based on more candles, but the minhag is to light. The language of the Shulchan Aruch is chayavin lios bateim ner daluk. But the minhag is to light two. Minhag is to light two. Why? So the Kolbo says, because everything in Shabbos is double. Right, the man was double, the seirim, the shnei kvasim, lechem mishnah, zachar v'shamar. The Gemara in Shabbos Daf Lamed Gimel. Remember when Rav Shimon Yochai came out of the cave, he sees an old man running at Erev Shabbos, and he's carrying two hadassim. And he says, "Why are you carrying two hadassim?" He says, "L'kavod Shabbos, one for zachar, one for shamar." So from there it comes that we light two, one for zachar, one for shamar, and then the minhag is that we add on candles for each child. The Gemara says that if one is careful about halakas neiros, then he'll be zocha to wonderful children, and therefore maybe that's where the minhag came from. But this is the Shmir Shabbos says only when you light in your house you can light for all your children. If you go away, two candles, even it's not a violation of the minhag, right? One can still light two candles if they are out. What if one forgot to light? So there's a maharil. The Gemara doesn't say a word about this. There's a maharil, that there's a knas, there's a penalty that's imposed. The Maharil says in Hilchot Shabbos, if a woman forgets, shetehei zehira kol yamei lahosif al kol ner shel mitzvah yos mashayis regila. She could add on, and the Ramah quotes this. Because you're always allowed to add on, right? You don't take away. You're always allowed to add on if she forgot. What if she was an ones? So the Mishnah Berurah quotes, ones is obviously not included. She was in jail. The big shaila is, what about bisman hazeh? If the whole purpose is shalom bayis, and therefore if a woman forgot, she violated shalom bayis, and now it's terrible. But nowadays we have electric lights, and it's light anyway without the Shabbos candles. So is there still a knas? So this is a discussion in the poskim. The Shevet HaLevi seems to say that yes, kasha lashiv b'mashim makar b'rishonim. It's hard to answer because this is nowhere in Shas or the Rishonim. It comes from the Maharil, but he says l'chora. It seems like you should light anyway. But Rav Avadia says no. Rav Avadia says if there's a light on, this chashmal on in the house, then one wouldn't have to light. Generally, women do not want to add on a candle, and we could generally find a kula in this case. Number one, often it happens on Yontif. It's the second night of Yontif and Chutz La'aretz, and they forgot. It's Simchas Torah night. So who says the Gzeira was ever formulated on Yontif? Number two, maybe it's an ones. If they're involved in so many other things, and tzarchei abayis and cooking, is that called forgetting? And number three, maybe electric lights. So generally, we could find the kula for a woman not to have to add on a candle like that. Even though the Maharil holds maker adin, but we could generally find kulas. What should one use to light? So really, one could use anything. One could use anything to light. Right? The Mishnah in Shabbos, right? Any light that lights well. Right, if there's a light that doesn't light well and there's a chash, shema, you might come to fix it. So those are the ones that shouldn't be used. Things that are foul smelling, Itron, as is described, shouldn't be used. Some say Shemen Zayis. Anything that has a beautiful light is good to use. What about electric lights? So that's a big discussion in the poskim. The Rugged Shaver says that one does not fulfill with electric lights because you need a fire. But most assume that one does fulfill the mitzvah with electric lights if that's what you need. Rabbi Shalom Rosner, the Or Letzion, says battery-powered lights can be used, but not lights from an AC power. Okay, but the generally accepted practice is that one can use them. Some say you can't make a bracha, but many poskim say you can even make a bracha on electric lights. Because it's not a din of fire, and some poskim that I've heard are even fluorescent, even LED. It's a din of light. It's not a din of fire. Havdalah is a din of fire, but this is light, and therefore one could even make a bracha on it. The proper place. We mentioned this already, but again, what happens if you're eating out and you're sleeping at home? So the poskim say that one should light. There's an idea of lighting where you eat. But let's say that's not your makam yuchad. Let's say you're going to be at home. So if you're going to be at home, so you should light at home if it's not too far and sit there for a little bit to get hana, because you need to get hana from it, or put in a lot of paraffin, and therefore they will be still lit when you come home. Or just put on a light. If you don't want to leave that because of sakana, one could just put on a light, have that in mind, and then go to the other place and light where one is going to eat. The Shulchan Aruch discusses madlikin bezaviyas havayis v'ochlan b'chatzer. If you're going to light in a place where you don't get any hana, so that could be a bracha levatala. One has to be careful not to light in a place where it's totally not going to be. Nobody's going to get any hana from it. Could many people light in one place? Right? How much added light is that? And let's say in a hotel, in a lobby. So the Shulchan Aruch seems to be machmir. Shulchan Aruch says, Shnayim o shlosha bali batim ochlim b'makam echad. Yesh omrim, that everyone lights themselves. Some say not. V'nachon lizar b'slavi brachas v'lo yivarech ala echad. Only one person makes a bracha. But the Ramah says, aval anu ein noagin kain. And therefore, more than one person can light. It adds ambiance, and it's not just about the light, and therefore in a lobby, in a place where it's going to get hana. If you're going to light in a hotel, in a room that's off and nobody's there, you just go and move away. That's not really so correct. But if it's in a lobby where people see it, or even in the side of a dining room where it can be seen, so then one is able to light there. One is able to light there. If one is not a light, what about in a hotel room? So generally that is against the law and is dangerous. So what should one do? One should turn the light off and on in your bathroom, even in the hotel room, and then go down to light. And have in mind that is part of the lighting. This is a discussion of these electric lights, and again in public places. That is what one should do. And we continue now, going to number 3. Going to number 3 in terms of shiur number 3. Who is obligated to light? So who's obligated to light? So we know men and women have a chiyuv to light. It's the chiyuv. All mitzvahs of Shabbos are equal between men and women. Kiddush and Shalosh Hodis and Lechem Mishnah. All the mitzvahs of Shabbos, that's the Zachar v'Shamar. In Brachas Daf Chaf, women are obligated in all the mitzvahs, and men are obligated in Halakas Neiros. People think that Halakas Neiros is a women's thing. Women do it. Why do women do it? Women do it for 2 reasons that I mentioned at the Rishonim. Either because it goes back to Chava. Somehow the Medrash says, because she extinguished the light of the world, she brought death to the world, so forevermore women have a chiyuv to be mosif or. Right? Shalosh Rabbi Yeshua. This is the Medrash on page 111. Right, always giving back. Number 1. Number 2, the Rambam's lashon is, why do women do it? Again, and they're motzi men. They're involved in the house. They're asukos melechas habayis. I like to think this is even a deeper understanding of the Rambam, is that they're the akaras habayis. The women set the ambiance. The women set the feeling and the state of the house, and therefore that's why they should be the ones. Not sure if we mentioned it earlier, but to mention it now, again, there's a different discussion about how can we even light with electric lights if there's already light in the room. isn't it kind of a bracha levatala? So how could we even light? What's the purpose of the lighting? So some poskim say you turn off the light. The Shmir Shabbos quotes this. Some say you turn off the light, a woman lights candles, then somebody else turns on the light. That's one thing, what might be done. But some say that's just putting out the light that she just lit. So others say, no, she should turn off the light and then turn it on with kavana, that this is also part of the lighting, and then light her candles. Number 2. Rabbi Shalom Rosner is quoted in the Shmir Shabbos as saying, even if most people don't do any of that, most women just light the candles. So what do you mean they just light the candles? So the Rabbi Shalom Rosner explains, because nowadays it's about ambiance. You walk into a house, you see the Shabbos candles, you know it's Shabbos. Even if there's plenty of light in the room, you know it's Shabbos. And therefore, it's taken on a different character today, an added character, and therefore that's why it is mutter, just to do it straight, even if one doesn't turn off any of the lights. Okay, back to our discussion about men and women. So we spoke about the 2 reasons that women are the ones that do it. Even if the man wakes up one day and says, I want to light the candles, tough luck. Tough luck is the woman is allowed to light the candles. It's good that the husband set up the candles, right? That's the diak of Rabbi Kiva Eger that we say in the Mishnah, that the women are musharos in nida chava hadlakas haner. That's not parallel. It should be nida chala ner. Why hadlakas haner? It doesn't say prisas nida havrashas chala, because hadlakas haner is on the woman, but the husband the should set it up. That's the minhag of the husband buying candlesticks for the wife during the engagement, because he'll always have a piece of the mitzvah, and also the husband should set up the candles. Whenever it is. If he has a busy Friday, set it up on Thursday. The husband should set up the candles, and the wife lights the candles. What about single girls? So there is a minhag. There's a Chabad minhag that the girls light candles. But again, Rav Ovadia is not supportive of that minhag with a bracha. If light a candle, you can light a candle. We're not supportive of that minhag with a bracha. But again, most poskim say that if she wants to light with a bracha, she can light with a bracha. That's her hadlakas neiros. What happens if somebody is away for Shabbos and you're staying at somebody else's house? You're away for Shabbos. So some Rishonim, we saw the Rav Yah, this might be compared to halakas neiros Chanukah. So just like by Chanukah, there's a concept of giving a pruta or being mishtatef. So maybe here too, maybe mishtatef. Others say one doesn't need to do that. We mentioned that it's not the same thing. You have a chiyuv. If somebody's already lighting for you, then you're yotzei. It's not that you have to pay for it. It's not a chovas gavra like hadlakas neiros Chanukah. Shabbos, if somebody's lighting in my house, okay, I'm yotzei with them. It's covered. What about in a dorm? The Mordechai talks about. The Mordechai, page 115. Bachur mahochim lumar chutz lebatayim. Tzrichin lahalik ner shel Shabbos bechedram. They have to light. If they have a dorm room, they have to light in their dorm room, right? Or have a light, or turn a light on in their dorm room and have kavana that this is for lighting. So why is it? How is it that many in the dorm, they don't think about this, they don't focus on it? So what is the defense of so many that don't take part? So most say that when you're in a dorm, you're in one big family, and therefore, if there's one person lighting in the dining room, so then that's okay. Again, l'chadchila, one should, if it's in a dorm, so one should know that there is an idea of a makam miyuchad, and therefore turn the light on in the room. What if a husband is away? So if a husband is away in a place where there's nobody lighting, you have to light. But if it's a place where you're staying somewhere else and the wife is lighting at home, so there's no chiyuv for the husband to light in that situation. And we saw many poskim relating to this in terms of Lamaisa. The Piskei Teshuvos quoted, either be mishtatef, yishtatu imzeh shemadlik b'chader ochel, sheyadlik b'cheder sheyashadam v'yadlik b'bracha, and others say that they're just yotzei, and just put on the or chashmal. This section ended with, can one ask a non-Jew to light? What happens if one's running late? So the Maggid Avraham quotes the Maharash, B'Shem the Maharam. There was a Friday wedding. They had weddings on Friday. In those days it was common. Sheesh chuppah b'erev Shabbos, and it was very late. And the woman doesn't want to lie. She want to be Kal Shabbos, as we'll get to, right? So if she says could she tell the non-Jew to light? So the Maggid Avraham wonders, Tamua. She's gonna make a bracha on the guy's gonna lie. She's gonna make a bracha. So the Magen Avraham is not so sure about this. B'diavad, he says, Im shachacha milevarach hashachashecha yesh lispoch. You can be somech on it. You can be somech on it. This is known as the huge chiddush of the Magen Avraham, that you can make a bracha on the lighting of a non-Jew. Says Rabbi Kiva Eger, there on Shulchan Aruch, there's no shlichus to a non-Jew. Ain't shlichus l'nachri. For your ikar, he says, right, how could you do that? And therefore most achronim, including the Mishnah Berurah, dispute this suggestion of the Maharam, but in Lumdis, many quote this as a great mucker for a shiur. Why? How can you make a bracha? Because sometimes there's mitzvahs that are focused on the ma'isa, sometimes there's mitzvahs focused on the result. And just like Tevilas Kalim, it's about the result, Halakas Neiros is also about the result, and the Ma'akeh is about the result. And the Machan Ephraim says you can make a bracha on Ma'akeh if a non-Jew builds the Ma'akeh because you got it taken care of. So maybe here too you got it taken care of, and that would be acceptable. Does one accept Shabbos with the lighting of the candles? Right, so that is the Bahag and the Ramban. Machlokas Bahag and the Ramban. The Bahag says in Hilchas Chanukah that you should first light Chanukah candles and then Shabbos candles, because by Shabbos candles, that's it. It's Shabbos. You can't light Chanukah candles afterwards. It's an automatic Kabbalah. And the Ramban in Shabbos Chav Gimel says, "V'kamahu rachok zehatam." No, not true. If you don't have kavana, Im Amru b'Yom HaKippurim Kain. Kisha Amar Zman. You want to say it by the Shechianu of Yom Kippur? Okay, Shechianu Lazman Hazeh. But here, no. Allah goes there Shabbos. Im Liku Mibod Yom. Ma Kibul Shabbos Yesh Bakach. No such automatic. Father Abba Lo Mibnei Shu Shabbos Umalik. Mibnei Shadayin Eno Shabbos Malik. If you light in the candle, says the Ramban, it shows it's not Shabbos yet. So if it's not Shabbos yet, there's no automatic Kabbalah. And therefore the Ramban says it's not a Kabbalah. Machlokes Bahag and the Ramban. The Shulchan Aruch quotes both opinions. Reis Sama Gimel. That's the siman about Halakas Neiros. He quotes Libahag Kivan Shidlik Ner Shal Shabbos Chalav Shabbos V'Neser B'Malacha. Once you lied is an Neser Malacha, and therefore women drop the match. The Yesh Omrim, but and the Ramban says no. There's no automatic Machlokas. But even within the Bahag that it's automatic, we saw there is a question: does a T'nai work? Does a T'nai work? If a woman says, I know it's automatic because that's what the Bahag says, does a T'nai work? So we generally assume that a T'nai would work, even though L'chatchila, we say generally a woman shouldn't be making T'nais all the time, right? What's the halacha? The minhag has developed that the woman, regarding the women, the custom is like the Bahag, that is an automatic Kabbalah, and for men, there is no automatic Kabbalah, and therefore if a situation where a man is going to be lighting, he can light and then daven mincha afterwards, no problem, because the lighting is not the Kabbalah. And we'll also get to that in terms of how a man lights. A man makes the bracha and then lights, because there's no issue of Kabbalah when it comes to a man. A T'nai, a woman can make a T'nai b'shas tzarech. Once a year, twice a year, she can make a T'nai. What's a tzarech? So the Shmir Shabbos says, going to the kotel, I don't know if it's such a tzarech. That's what Rabbi Shalom Rosner says, but the Tzitz Eliezer says, yeah, for sure it's a need, right? She wants to go daven at the kotel, and therefore, surely that's enough of a tzarech to go into a taxi after lighting, and therefore it is okay. The Mari Weil says that the Mixas Noshim Noagim Shamalik Haneris Akach Masimi Yidei Prusos. There's an issue here, as I just alluded to, in terms of the lighting. By most mitzvahs, you could just make the bracha over Lasiyasan, which is a special key in making a bracha before you do the mitzvah and then do the mitzvah. The problem is, by some mitzvos, making the bracha beforehand is tricky. By Netilas Yadayim, your hands aren't clean yet. By Tevila, I'm Tameh, or what if it's a ger? The person's not Jewish yet. And also here, if we hold like the Bahag, I say the words L'hadag Ner Shal Shabbos, maybe already that's the Kabbalah. And I can't light candles. So that's why women generally light. They don't look at the candles. They don't get hana. It's either they didn't light yet, they cover their eyes, they say the bracha and any tefillah that they might want to add in, and then, Good Shabbos, they look at the candles. You have to look at the candles afterwards to make sure that you get hana from the candles. That is the minhag. For a man, no. The man just makes the bracha and lights. No problem with that. The Shulchan Aruch, the Abi Omer is not a fan of that. The Abi Ravadia says, no, just go light normally. Just like normally, over Lasiyasan, even according to the Bahag, it's totally on the Hadlaka, not on the Bracha. And therefore, there's no problem with making the Bracha beforehand, according to Rev Ovadia. Okay, what about Yantif? We added in a little bit. Yantif, there's no problem with over Lasiyasan. You're allowed to add fire on Yantif. So that's a Machlokes, the mother of the Drisha, and the Maggid Avram. If a woman is confident enough and she could make a difference between Shabbos and Yantif, it seems like maybe that's the L'chadchila. On Yantif, a woman should make the bracha and then light. But if it's too confusing, sometimes you have a Yantif night and a Shabbos night, lo chilku b'kach, and therefore one can make the bracha afterwards, always. Okay. Moving right along to shiur number 4, the fourth and final shiur that we'll do in this section. Maybe we'll try to have another Chazara shiur if we can. Tosefes Shabbos. Tosefes Shabbos and Kabbalah Shabbos. Tosefes Shabbos, so there is a Gemara in Rosh Hashanah Daf Tes and Yuma, a few places, that quotes the principle of Tosefes Shabbos. It's Tosefes Yom Kippur, and then Tosefes Yontif, and then Tosefes Shabbos. That is a mitzvah. To be Mosif Michol Ala Kodesh, Kedusha cannot be held in. It always has to overflow. And therefore there is a mitzvah of Tosefes Shabbos. There is a mystery that the Rambam does not quote it. That's why when the Shulchan Aruch quotes this halacha, he quotes Yesh Omrim. Yesh Omrim, everybody except the Rambam. But he has covered for the Rambam, so therefore he says it in the lashon of Yesh Omrim. That's the Bir Halachas Ha'ara. Why he says Yesh Omrim. There's different issues in Lumdis. Why doesn't the Rambam have it? Maybe he holds it's D'Rabbanan. Maybe he holds. We mentioned a Lumdis of the Pri Megadim that maybe the Rambam holds during Ben Hashmashus. That's his Tosefes. Different suggestions given, but either way, there's a mitzvah we paskin. Yesh Omrim, the Shulchan Aruch says in Reis Lamachal Beis, Shetzarch lahosif michal ala kodesh. Mitzvahs asay da'araisa, says the Maggid of Remes. Learn that from Sukkim. Mosim michal ala kodesh. There is a major lumdish question, and the in Tosefes, as we mentioned, is it when I accept Shabbos early? Is it mamish? Shabbos is coming early. The calendaric day is early. I have that power. Or it just means it's kind of like a neder, a Kabbalah of an Isser Malacha. But it's not really Shabbos yet. It's definitely not nighttime. There are certain halachas that require Laila, like Matzah requires Laila. Kriya Shema requires Laila. That's the Tosfos at the beginning of our Psachim. That's quoted on page 149 here. But there are many others. Right? The machlokas we mentioned between the Marshal and the Taz about eating early on Shmini Atzeres and Chutz La'aretz. Are you allowed to eat early? You have to eat in the Sukkah. In Shmini Atzeres and Chutz La'aretz, but you don't make a bracha. You don't make a bracha b'sukkah. So the Maharshal says you can't eat early because after you sit in the sukkah without making a bracha of leisha b'sukkah, it's a zilzal. And the Taz says, what do you mean it's a zilzal? The Taz says you made early and it's Shmini Atzeres. And the same Torah that says you have a halach of sitting in the sukkah says you have a halach of Shmini Atzeres, and therefore machlokas Taz and Marshal in a few places. So you have to eat a kazayis of challah if you made early Shabbos. There's a Tosfos in Ksubas, Daf Mem Zayin. There's the halacha of not getting married on Yontif applied during Tosefes Yontif. 2 days in Tosfos, Ksubas Mem Zayin. This is all about how do you look at that time that of Tosefes. Do you look at it as mamish Shabbos is early, or it's just a Kabbalah? Just a Kabbalah. Fine. How much time is needed for Tosefes? So there's no shiur mentioned. Tosfos mentions a kol shehu. Tosfos in Rosh Hashanah Daf Tes mentions a kol shehu. Our minhag of Klal Yisrael's minhag is to light candles 18 minutes before Shkia, or maybe even 20. The Mishnah Berurah says 20. Where does that come from? So we're not getting into all the details now, but if you remember, there is a major machlokes about Ben Hashmashos. Ben Hashmashos, how long is Ben Hashmashos? Is known as Rabbeinu Tam and the Gra. But there's one day, the Yereim. The Yereim says that Ben Hashmashos is before Shkia. We assume it's after Shkia, but there's one day it says before Shkia. Before Shkia, how long is Ben Hashmashos? The Gemara says 3/4 of a mil. 3/4 of a mil. So if a mil is the amount of time it takes you to walk a mil, so how long is that? Machlokas Poskim, 18 minutes, 22 and a half minutes, 24 minutes. The longest mil is 24 minutes. 3/4 of a mil is 18 minutes. So according to the Yereim, Blazmi Metz, a Talmud of Rabbeinu Tam, Ben Hashmashos is 18 minutes before Shkia. That's where the minhag came from, of lighting 18 minutes to be choshesh for the shijah of the Yereim. We really don't paskin like the Yereim. And that's why the Mishnah Berurah says 20 minutes to have 2 minutes of Tosefes based on the Yereim. But that's really, one doesn't need that much with the Tosefes Shabbos Meikar Adin, any amount. There is a Tosefes Rabbeinu Peretz in Beitz Daf Lamed that says half an hour, but again, different days, how much is needed. The Chayei Adam also quotes that. But either way, Tosefes is a mitzvah that one should be careful. What's the earliest time you can start Shabbos? What if you're really firm, you want to start on Wednesday? You can't. The earliest time to accept Shabbos is Plag HaMincha. Is the mid-time between Mincha, Ketana, and Shkia. That's the earliest time. If one lights before that, it is a bracha l'atala, and therefore on an early Shabbos day, one has to make sure if they're davening at a plag minyan, mincha before plag, the wife who usually lights candles when the husband goes to shul has to remember to light later. How does one be Makabel Shabbos? Tosefes. So the Ritva says in Rosh Hashanah, so one should say something, verbalize. Yosifenu b'dvarim shel kedusha o b'tfila o b'kiddush. Right? One should try to say something. But it sounds like from other Rishonim that one does not need something verbal, and generally most do not have something verbal. The Ramah says in Hilchos Yom Kippur, Ayin la'el im kibbal b'leiv lo ave Kabbalah. It's not a Kabbalah. The Mishnah Berurah says it is a Kabbalah. But either way, we try. We try to have at least a mental. The problem is most of the time we're davening and we just go into Shabbos, and often they're davening later. So first of all, if the tzibur is davening, do I have to be Makabel Shabbos? If there's only one shul in town and they're davening, and that's my shul, the poskim say, yeah, I'm nigrar after the tzibur. But in most of our communities, there are many different shuls and many different minyanim, and even in the same shul, there's 5 different minyanim. So l'chara, one is not nigrar after the tzibur. The Menuchas Ava, you have it there on page 159, says maybe you're nigrar after your shul. If your shul is having one minyan and you're planning to go there, so maybe it's you're meshubit to that minyan. But generally, if there's many different minyanim, that halacha really isn't so lamaisa. What happens if I was Makabel Shabbos? Am I allowed to ask someone else who wasn't Makabel Shabbos yet to do malacha? So it's Ma'aseh Mechal Yom, right? Puk Chazi Mayama Dabar. A woman lights candles. She asks a family member to turn off the oven, to turn off the light. So it seems to be clear that it is mutter. That is what the Shulchan Aruch says in Reis Sama Gimel. There is a machlokas, between the Ramah and the Lavush. What about after Shabbos? At the end of Shabbos, if it's still Shabbos for me, and somebody else already ended Shabbos, could I ask them to do malacha? So the Ramah says yes. The Ramah says the same thing. It's not Shabbos for them. He's my Shabbos Jew. Right, I don't need a Shabbos guy here. I have a Shabbos Jew. And the Lavush says, Chas v'shalom. Going into Shabbos is not Shabbos for him yet. But here, it's Shabbos for you. And therefore, the Lavush says, don't compare. Iyule Shabbos, the Ifuke Shabbos. And therefore, don't compare. And if you're still doing Shabbos, you still have Shabbos, you cannot ask somebody else to do a malacha for you. So what do you do about mincha? What do you do about mincha and erev Shabbos? So you have to try to daven before Shkia. You have to daven before and then be Makabel Shabbos. The problem is, what happens if you're going to go to a shul, which many times, minchas are late. They finish mincha after Shkia. Where's the Kabbalah? Where's the Tosefes Shabbos? Tosefes Shabbos be before Shkia. So where's the Tosefes Shabbos? So the Tzitz Eliezer says, Shekiba olav Shabbos beyachiv v'niskar lachem v'gan shel espal mincha yachol shapir. You can be Makabel Shabbos then daven mincha. It's if one needs. Rav Avadia says maybe one can make a t'nai. I'm going to be Makabel Shabbos now, before Mincha. I'm only Makabel for Isser Malacha, but I'm still going to daven Mincha. Maybe you have the possibility. Maybe you just think about it. Think about in the middle of it, after the silent Shemona Esrei at least. So there's different days about what to do in terms of helping your situation of being Makabel Shabbos. You have to try to finish Mincha beforehand in terms of Kabbalah. Then we went into a little bit the proper time for Mincha and Ma'ariv. Again, Mincha has to be before Shkia, Ma'ariv after Shkia. What happens in the case of the Tarti de Sasri? We spoke about a little bit. We'll get it in the later shiur as well. But again, one should try to finish earlier. You have some flexibility. The Magen Avraham says since the Hektar Chalav and Ve'varim were placed, which is Ma'ariv, were placed on the Mizbeach before Shabbos, then it should be permitted, at least on a Friday night, to daven earlier. And there are different suggestions that we went through then, what to do in this case, and why is it that maybe Friday night is different? Maybe Friday night is different. Again, let's formulate the question again. According to Rabbi Yehuda, you have to daven mincha before plag and ma'ariv after plag. According to the Rabbanan, you have to daven mincha before shkia and ma'ariv after shkia. So what do you do when you're in a minyan? So one issue is when the daven mincha is so late, what do you do about Kabbalah Shabbos? So that we just mentioned. You have to think about it beforehand to try to daven mincha before. But what about the issue? Sometimes in summer minyanim, you have a mincha after plag and the ma'ariv before shkia. So there's a Lechem Mishnah based on the Rambam. Tfilas Arvis Rishus. You can be flexible. There are others that say sometimes you can get the plag of the Magen Avram, even though we usually go by the plag of the Gra. But we mentioned a Pri Yitzchak. The Pri Yitzchak mentions Rav Yitzchak Petterberger that really the time for Ma'ariv, the Gemara says Ein La Keva. And the Vilna Gaon interpreted that to mean Ma'ariv is when you can no longer daven Shachris or Mincha. Whenever you can't daven Shachris or Mincha, you could that's when time for Ma'ariv is. So on a weekday, if I asked you at 6 o'clock, do you daven Mincha already? Yeah. I daven Mincha. Is it the time for Mincha? Yeah, it's the time for Mincha, but I just already davened. But on Friday night, once I'm Makabel Shabbos, is it the time for Mincha? It's no longer the time for Mincha. So maybe automatically now is the time for Ma'ariv. So maybe Dafka on a Friday night, you have less problems and you're allowed to have, it's a defense of the Tarta Desasri. Does the wife have to be Makabel Shabbos with her husband? Right, when her husband was Makabel Shabbos? So the Rav Moshe says no. L'chor pashut she'ein nigrar sacharav. Not nigrar. And others say, Rav Vosner thought that they're one family, they're one mishpacha, they should be nigrar. So the best thing to do is, if one makes early Shabbos and they're coming home and the wife is still, busy, don't go into the house. Don't go into the house. One of my Rebbeim said this. Stay outside and learn a little bit until you see the candles lit. Once the candles are lit, then you can go in. But that's what one should do. When one comes home, generally, one should eat right away. Right? You have Shalom Aleichem, Eishes Chaya, but eat right away. If you davened early, and now it's already the time after Tzeis, so then the Mishnah Berurah says maybe you should say Kriya Shema right then, so you don't forget. Don't forget Kriya Shema is Daraisa. You have to wait till Choshech, as we said. If it's not the time yet, so we're Mako. We're Mako to say that even if it's going to come in half an hour, 40 minutes, you don't have to push off the Suda. That's big tircha. But one should remember to repeat Kriya Shema if one didn't say it yet. Adkan, the review of the first 4 shiurim here in our Tzurba Merabanan, Volume 16, the Lax Family Edition and the Weiss Family, Volume 16. B'ez Hashem, we'll try to have another shiur reviewing the next 4 shiurim. We will stop here.